The prophet Daniel, in the 12th chapter, says that in the time of the end, many shall be chosen and made white, and shall be tried as fire. And it's interesting because St. Augustine, I believe, is quoted as saying that the same fire which purifies the just, the same trials and difficulties that purify the just, and basically the fire is utilized by God to perfect their souls, to craft, to help them develop, certain virtues and stuff like that. The same fire that purifies the wicked, not purifies the wicked. The same fire that purifies the just destroys the wicked, right? So when he said here, tried as fire, right? The shall be chosen and made white and shall be tried as fire. Let's read that again. The prophet Daniel in the 12th chapter says that in the time of the end, many shall be chosen and made white and shall be tried as fire, and the wicked shall deal wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the learned shall understand. That is, many who have known the faith shall abandon it by apostasy. Some of the learned shall fall. That is, they shall fall from their fidelity to God. And how shall this come to pass? Partly by fear, partly by deception, partly by cowardice, partly because they cannot stand for unpopular truth in the face of popular falsehood. As I mentioned, some people are afraid to be Catholic, right? They have that cowardice. Partly because the overruling contemptuous public opinion, as in such a country as this and in France, so subdues and frightens Catholics that they dare not avow their principles, and at last dare not hold them. So he's saying that they're basically afraid to, have conflict with the overwhelming heretical views in their country or whatever. And that fear and that cowardice basically, is most of the time is going to result in their complete apostasy, going to result in them losing the Catholic faith, And it's interesting because I remember the same person that I mentioned who was so unable to accept that their earthly family would all go to hell if they died outside the church. That same person that became a heretic. When I had first begun to say know that person religiously, I remember there was an occasion, I guess you could say, or a situation where they were tasked with informing their earthly friends of the truth of the Catholic faith, and that basically other beliefs are false religions. And this person, I saw the cowardice in the way they spoke. They said, oh, Islam is technically false or something. And I was like, after they finished talking they were talking on a video call. And after they talked to their friends on a video call, I was like, what did you just do? And they were confused. I was like, you said Islam is technically false? It's not technically false. It is false. And that person just, from the beginning, they had that kind of that weak, cowardly thing going on. And basically because of that, and I saw that characteristic in them, I was like, yeah, they're gonna become a heretic. I just knew they would. I was like, that person's gonna become a heretic. There's no way they're not gonna persevere, man. And they did become a heretic, as I said they would, because they had that cowardice. They were afraid to boldly and firmly profess the truth. They were afraid of offending their friends or all that kind of garbage. You can't be afraid to offend people. If you simply don't want to interact with heretics because you just don't like being around heretics, you don't want to get into any conversation with them because you don't want to hear their blasphemy and stuff, sure, that's no problem. But if you're afraid to offend heretics, you're afraid to profess the truth because of offending them, that's the reason. It's not because you don't want to have to hear heresy, but because you're oh, I don't want to have this person stop being friends with me or think badly of me or that kind of nonsense. That's garbage. Get rid of that garbage. Get rid of that trash. If you have that trash, ask God to purge you of that filth.